Hello, and welcome back to Let's Talk More on Monday. I'm your podcast host, Chloe. I have been away for a little bit. Ariana took the mic for a while to do a bit of a look back with some of our past contributors before we launch issue 9. And at the time of this recording, issue 9 has not officially been released to the public yet. So, very exciting. We're very much looking forward to the pre launch happy hour and everybody getting to see issue 9 identity. But for today's purposes, we are starting our contributor chat. Longtime listeners will be familiar with that series. We want to have people who contribute to our issues and provide their perspectives come on here and talk a little bit about what it was like to write their articles and to put together a piece for more and give us just a little bit of an insight into their life and their journey and how it all came together for them. So this is our first in our issue 9 series, and I'm joined today by Heidi Lopez, who has contributed once again for more and is back on the podcast for a second time. So thank you so much for being here with me again, Heidi.
Yeah, thank you so much. I'm very excited to be here and start chatting.
Yeah, me too. And I'm very excited for people to see issue 9. I think it's coming together really well, and it's going to be an excellent issue for us. So, for those of our listeners that may have not heard your first um, article, your first interview, or for those of us who have just slept since then, will you tell us who you are and what you do?
Yes. So, hello, my name is Heidi. I'm a Latinx designer and illustrator. I mostly touch based on my designs related to Latin identity and growing up in the United States with Latin identity, self representation. I do a lot of purpose driven work so that a lot of viewers can connect to it, or even if you can't empathize with the design that I've created. And I feel like that the more personal the work is, the more it speaks. So that's mainly what I do as a designer. And I'm, yeah, very excited. Hopefully, people like what I'm about to say, what we're about to discuss.
Yeah, absolutely. And I thought your first interview was really interesting. And, I went and checked out some of your work after we talked, and I completely agree. Like, I think your perspective and the effort that you put in to make yourself come through your work pays off.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's talk about what you wrote for issue 9. Like I said, the theme was identity. So we wanted people to really deep dive into what that means in their lives and what context that holds for them. So my first question for you is, what does identity mean to you? What does it mean in your life?
So that was a question I've always asked myself growing up, whether it's sections of my life. So when I was 10, 15, 18, when I started college, I always had something in the back of my mind that I didn't really have a full fledged identity. I didn't know really who I was until I started expressing that through my art and through my work. So I grew up as Colombian Peruvian, Colombian on my dad's side, Peruvian on my mom's, but I also grew up in a predominantly white community, also going to schools with predominantly white individuals. And so the big thing for me was I had to assimilate a lot.
Hmm.
I was so scared to kind of be poked out in the middle of the room because of my hair and how I looked, how I talked, and even the food I would sometimes bring. So I always was not understanding fully like, okay, this is Heidi, but also this is Heidi at school, but then this is Heidi at home.
Mhm.
So I didn't really start to really take into consideration who I was until I started expressing that through art when I was in doing my undergraduate at Jacksonville University. My thesis topic there was mainly on immigration and then the stories of immigration. And so that's when I started to think, oh, well, I kind of relate to some of these questions that I'm asking other people. And so that's when I started to ask myself the same questions. And it's still like a work in progress. I don't think anyone really can solidify their identity because I feel like people are always changing with the experiences
Right.
they go through. And sometimes you know how to work through those experiences, sometimes you can't, or sometimes it's just hard. So I feel like you're always learning something about yourself. You're always doing something new. So I feel like everyone has maybe like a good 80% of what they know of themselves. And then like the next 20% is like just for the rest of their lives continuing to understand what they like, who they are, etc. But the big thing for me when I always like think back to identity, I'm very grateful I had the opportunity to create artwork because that was really just the vessel for me and for other people that I've talked to about this that can express themselves in that way and kind of figure out, the right questions to ask themselves so that they can really reflect. And oftentimes it's a bit emotional, it's a bit hard to kind of ask that question and, yeah, I can say I've, like, shed a few tears, and it was, like, a little, yeah, again, yeah, emotional, but it was a nice experience to go through, and again, I'm still learning who I am, still learning and going through different experiences, so, um,
Right.
I don't have, like, a full, like, who's Heidi?" But it's a work in progress Heidi still.
Yeah. And I always very much admire the people that, have a strong, like, innate sense of identity of who they are, and they carry that with them into whatever setting that they may be in, but don't feel like it needs to be, set in one way because, like
Mm,
you said, we're constantly changing and evolving as humans, and we have to give ourselves that 20% grace to be like, actually, I changed my mind about this, or I don't like this thing that I used to like. So, I need to get rid of it out of my life. Like, if you don't allow for change, you're never going to grow. You're never going to figure out like what you could surprise yourself.
right.
So you talked a lot in your article about the Pratt Institute for graduate school and the both of the women that you ended up interviewing for your article. I think you got connected to through Pratt. So my next question is, how did the Pratt Institute shape your perception of identity?
I feel that it really opened, a door for different, individuals and personalities that I could relate to. Again, I grew up in Jacksonville, Florida, and it's very, again, predominantly white. We're pretty up north, so it's kind of near the southern bend, where Georgia and all these other southern states are. So the trickle down mindset, unfortunately, of immigration and the negative connotations it has has been seeped into the community in Jacksonville. And so when I went from Jacksonville all the way to New York, where Pratt is, I was able to like really immerse myself with a great community where there was just so many people from Texas, from Washington D.C., from California. So there was like so many people from different places
Mhm.
where I could talk to and I can relate to. And it's like, oh, I'm actually not the only person who's had these thoughts, who felt this certain way about assimilation, about not, wanting to be picked out of the bunch, trying to, be the same as the other girl next to me. And so I was able to reach out and I found that there was a Hispanic Heritage Club at Pratt Institute. And so I reached out to the president there and I asked her if I could interview some of the people, or if anybody was interested, to interview with me on the book that I was doing on Latin representation. And I was able to get a few people back. Two of them, Naira and Carly, came and was like so absolutely amazing. They were able to share a lot of their own personal struggles growing up in the United States. Naida is Brazilian. She was born in Brazil, but she came over when she was about 6, 7 years old.
Oh, wow.
But then Carly kind of had a different situation. She was actually adopted from Guatemala and grew up here in the United States. And so, and her parents, she has two white mothers. And so she wasn't able to kind of get a full rounded opportunity to figure out her past. But she did. It's been such a privilege though, looking back, to interview those two because Carly really got very personal and intimate with her life. And she even shared with me a picture of her mom from her adoption papers. And I don't know why that like really stood out to me. And it was just like so powerful. And it's actually a picture in the book that I have. I was able to scan it and I got her permission.
Oh, wow.
And I just really loved hearing other people's perspectives, other experiences, because we don't all have the same, of course. And even if you can't relate to a certain, life that other people are talking about, I feel like you can still like sympathize and empathize and learn something new, which is a main thing that I also wanted to do. Like, even if you can't relate, even if you maybe not understand fully what these people go through, then maybe you can like learn, and maybe you can become like an advocate, or maybe you can be the one person in like a room and say, actually, maybe we should adjust our perspective a little bit. And even if one person does that, then I feel like it's worth doing the work, and we can connect and, touch more people with that.
Yeah.
So I'm very happy, yeah, that Pratt was able to kind of give me that opportunity and privilege to talk to these people, and then be able to even be a vessel for them so that I can take their words and kind of like bring it out and share it with everybody.
Yeah. I feel like there's been such a common thread recently in the things that I have been reading and some of the posts that have come across my social media lately, just about like how to keep yourself informed, how to be a more empathetic person, how to like try to affect change in your community. And it seems like one of the most basic through lines is listening to other people's stories, genuinely trying to connect with them, even if you cannot relate to a single thing, like just genuinely trying to understand their perspective and listen to them, like absorb their story and let it become a part of yours as well. That just has been like such a through line in how do I be a better, like more empathetic person? How do I help my
Yeah,
community? So,
yeah,
what was the when did you first have the idea to write a book about cultural identity?
um, I feel I at first it was more so interviews. And then I started struggling with being able to figure out the physical object of what that would look like. I was thinking more of like exhibition design, where maybe some person can come in to this booth and then listen to the stories like physically with earphones and kind of react that way. But I felt that it lacked. I don't know. I feel like I'm the type of person that likes to create things so that people can take with them wherever they are. And
Mhm.
so I started thinking of what about making cards? And then from cards, I thought, well, that's too much to put on an interview on a small card. And so I kind of reiterated, and I then thought, well, why not, make a little book about it? So then that's where I started to create that first edition book. I do want to continue and do another, but that's where I started on that. And I was able to get three amazing people, like I said before, Naira and Carly, and also the third person in the book, Guillermo, which was another great person to talk with. But I really am the type of person that loves physical things. Like, I feel like it's a lot more personal again. It's like just tangible in your hands, and you can open it and you can kind of look through at your own space in your own time, and really figure out like how you feel about it. I
Mhm.
feel happy that I went in that route instead of the studio booth exhibition idea, because it's kind of a one and done experience, and then that's kind of
Right.
it. And but I didn't want that for this project. I really wanted it to be like a huge takeaway where it's, portable. It can live by itself anywhere.
Well, I know that Ariana and I agree because, the effort of printing a magazine, the cost alone of printing a magazine can be quite substantial, but we still do it because we completely agree. There's just something special about having it tangible in your hands, seeing it made real, and knowing that you probably live on someone's coffee table or on their bookshelf and they
Mhm.
can come back and flip through it and be like, I read this a year ago and I feel completely different about it now.
Exactly.
Yeah. So that's very exciting. Do you have any idea about like when it's going to be published, when it would be available?
Right now, I'm working through the copyright of the book, but for this first edition, I feel like I may probably keep it free for anyone who goes on my website, because it's the first edition, it's the first, iteration of it all,
Yeah.
and I'd rather connect to people through where free wise on my website and have them look at it and see, and then when I continue on with the second edition, then I'll probably start publishing it.
Yeah. But then
But
you'd already have a fan base.
exactly. So hopefully they like the first so they can come back for the second one.
Right.
I wanna grab them in with the first free so that they
Yes.
can see it. But yeah, I feel like these, stories, these, interviews that I was able to do and was privileged to do is, you know, a reward in itself. So I'm fine with it, with anybody reading it. I truly hope everybody reads it and, they come away with something, and that would just make me happy. That's it.
Yeah. Well, great segue. What is your website so that when it does become available, our listeners can go and read it?
Yes, the website is heidilopez.xyz, and the, page itself is the first one that you'll see when the my website pops up, and there will be a free link that you can click on that'll take you to, the file itself so you can look through. There's also my thesis book, and there's 2 videos I created that, are pop outs of interviews from those books that you can hear directly from the individuals that I interviewed.
That's so exciting. Um, is Are there any other ways that you would like people to connect with you? Social media, LinkedIn, anything like that?
Yeah, so, my Instagram is The Art of Heidi, and my LinkedIn is Heidi Lopez. I am also, if anybody's like reading or listening to this, reading this, watching this, and they're hesitant to reach out to me or to talk to me, please don't. I am so happy when I get emails from random people asking questions about, anything about me. I actually got someone random from Canada reach out to me. Her name is Rochelle, and she was amazing. And she actually asked me about my design perspective and like my years of design work. And I had a really nice time. We talked for over an hour and I gave her resources and it was really nice. And I made another friend, like I even networked there. So please like send me an email, send me a message. And I will try to figure out a time so we can meet. And yeah, I'm very excited. I love meeting people. So please don't hesitate.
Yes, amazing. I love it. Well, thank you so much for joining us on this episode of Let's Talk More on Monday. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to head over to our Patreon. We're going to dig a little deeper with Heidi. We're going to ask some more questions about how people can be better about learning about cultural identity or asking questions about it. So make sure to head on over to our Patreon and listen to that. In the meantime, check out our website. Make sure to pre order your issue of Issue 9 Identity, and we will hopefully see you at the pre-launch happy hour. But thanks for joining me, Heidi. We super appreciate it.
Thank you.
We'll see you next time on Let's Talk More on Monday.